Hello, everyone. We are getting closer to spring, I think, because I'm seeing that we have a high of 7 degrees Celsius today where I am, and yeah, that's promising. It's a promising start to spring. We have been having multiple what are they called snowstorms, mild ones. Anyway, let's jump to the highlights today, and here's looking forward to spring. So we'll start with $100 million offers. We must endeavor to keep our supply and satisfaction of desire under the demand that we are able to generate. This maximizes profits and keeps desire ravenous in our customer base. This is the real key to never going hungry. Okay, so the author is talking about the supply and demand thing. Um, you would want to keep the supply just slightly below demand so that you create this artificial scarcity. And that attracts people to buy, because if there is no scarcity, then people can always put off the decision to buy something later. But if there is scarcity, even a perceived scarcity, there is this notion that no, I need to buy it right now. So yeah, this book really this book concerns itself, and the author himself says it in the book that this book concerns itself with the things that work, not in the question of ethics or gray area or anything. So yeah, it's how we have hacks. This is more of a hack in the human psychology. You're influencing somebody to make a decision based on this illusion that you create of scarcity. So yeah, nothing too deep over here. Let's go on. Working backwards. In the 2016 shareholder letter, even though he wasn't explicitly talking about two pizza teams, Jeff suggested that most decisions should probably be made with somewhere around 70% of the information you wish you had. If you wait for 90%, in most cases, you're probably being slow. Plus, either way, you need to be good at quickly recognizing and correcting bad decisions. If you're good at if you're good at course correcting, being wrong may be less costly than you think, whereas being slow is going to be expensive for sure. So we have covered this multiple times over here, and this benchmark of 70% of information being kind of like the right heuristic. It's like a balancing act. Anything more than 70%, you're probably being slow. Anything less than 70%, you're rushing into it. You don't know enough. So anyway, the idea is that it's actually more important to be able to course correct. So if you make a mistake, it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay as long as you can course correct quickly. So that's more valuable, and the cost of making a mistake can easily be overcome. It can be very very small if you can course correct quickly. But if you're being slow, then you can't avoid that cost at all. It's going to be expensive. So yeah, that's the point I think over here. We have at your best, the quality of your work is determined by the quality of your thinking, and high quality thinking is incompatible with constant output. So we all know that we need some time off to, and actually, it's not really time off. We need some time to for a thinking session. We need to make time for that, because if you're just reacting, you're not actively pursuing things that you need to do. Strategic thinking takes deliberation, and if you're always looking at your inbox or incoming messages, and you're never going to get that chance to take a step back and think about it holistically. So yeah, that's the statement here. The quality of your work is determined by the kind of thinking you can do. And we have covered this in other books. For example, that book, the A Mind for Numbers, it talks about this diffused mode of thinking, where you're not really thinking of anything specifically. It's not that okay, you brainstorm on a particular problem. You may be out on a walk, or you may be taking a shower, or whatever, going through your daily chores, and your mind is still thinking about the problems it has dealt with. So that's very valuable, and as the book covers, it describes this mode, that this is where most creative solutions come up. So yeah, if you and in today, most kind of work, most roles, um, you need a bit of creativity, or a lot of creativity over there, because the things where you don't really need creativity, they're being replaced. Either they're already replaced, or they're going to be replaced with chat GPT and everything that we're seeing recently. So the only thing that's left is being creative, as in not being creative, but all roles where you need to employ creativity, and to be creative, you need to have a thinking session, a time dedicated to thinking. Let's go on. The molecule of more. Hallucinations can cause a person to see things that aren't really there, feel their touch, even smell them. The most common type of hallucination is the auditory hallucination, hearing voices. Okay, I think I highlighted this because this was new to me. The most common type of hallucination is the auditory one. That, and I don't really remember the context. I think I really highlighted this for that information. So I'll move on. The leader's greatest return. Why is it so important to touch a heart before you ask for a hand? Because people don't automatically commit to you and follow you when they understand you. They commit to you and follow when they feel understood. So this is the difference really in leadership and management, and like those this memes, that trope that goes on about leadership versus management. um and there is this lot of discussion. Of course, the book also covers this, that many leaders, they prefer control, that okay, whatever I say, people should do that. But that's not really what leadership is. That's not, you won't get too far with that. There are many scenarios where people will do what you tell them to do, and they're never long term. In the short term, you may get what you want, but in long term, it's not sustainable, it's not going to work out. So leadership is all about influence. And how do you influence people? You first seek to understand, then to be understood. So it's a nice play on the words, and I think this phrase is from some other book. Maybe I'm not remembering which one exactly. Seek to understand, then be understood. Is it Stephen Covey's Seven Laws of Highly Effective People? I think, maybe from that. I'm not really sure right now. Yeah, but it's the same thing over here. People don't commit to you when they understand you. They commit to you when they feel understood. So, key difference. Moving on, a mind for numbers. Okay, we just talked about it. Figuring out a difficult problem or learning a new concept almost always requires one or more periods when you aren't consciously working on the problem. Oh, this is actually exactly what we talked about a bit, in that highlight before, where I mentioned this book. So it's talking about the diffused mode of thinking again. That a period where you aren't consciously working on the problem. You may be taking a walk, or you may be in the shower, or whatever, something like that. Um, you're not consciously thinking about the problem, but your brain is still working in the diffuse mode, and that's where you figure out difficult problems or learn a new concept. Where that concept clicks for you. Yeah, okay, this is how it all works. That one. Next, we have range. That savants have more in common with prodigies like the Polgar sisters than he thought. They did not merely regurgitate. Their brilliance, just like the Polgar brilliance, relies on repetitive structures, which is precisely what made the Polgar skills so easy to automate. Um, I'm I don't know. I'm not really remembering this. I think they're talking about chess. Um, the skills that are easy to automate, the repetitive structures, and everything. Anyway, I think I better move on. Getting things done. We capture what has our attention. Two, clarify what each item means and what to do about it. Three, organize the results, which presents the options. We. Four, reflect on, which we then choose to. Five, engage with. The author is covering the entire essence of the structure of that getting things done paradigm, or getting things done system, with this five steps. First of all, whatever we are dealing with, in our environment, we capture that. So for example, we learn something new, or we learned of an event with which we have to change our approach, or whatever, anything that we need to react to, we capture that, and then we understand that better, clarify what that item means. We That's the next step, and then we organize the results. That's the third step. We organize. Okay, what are we going to do about it? Is this something we do right now or later? Wait, and where do I put it down? How am I going to be reminded of this? And then eventually we reflect on that. Whenever it's the time for to act on that particular thing or that particular task, we reflect on that, and then finally we decide to engage with it. So yeah, that the book, of course, elaborates on each of these points in different sections, different chapters. That's what the whole book is about: getting things done. Of course, the name right now. The author introduces the concept here. The infinite game. This is a long one. People start to realize that nothing and no one is safe. In response, some instinctually behave as if they were switched to self preservation mode. They may hoard information, hide mistakes, and operate in a more cautious, risk averse way. To protect themselves, they trust no one. Others double down on and only the fittest survive mentality. Their tactics can become overly aggressive. Their egos become unchecked. They learn to manage up the hierarchy to garner favor with senior leadership while, in some cases, sabotaging their own colleagues. To protect themselves, they trust no one. Regardless of whether they are in self preservation or self promotion mode, the sum of all of these behaviors contributes to a general decline in cooperation across the company. So, yeah, the author is making a point that neither of these modes are going to help the organization at all. So if your mode of control, we talked about mode of control for leaders later on, and one of the best ways leaders find to control people is through fear, through either reward or carrots or sticks that we have discussed yesterday also, I think yesterday or day before. Either with a reward or a punishment. And so if people are doing something being because they're motivated by rewards, that is they're in self promotion mode, or because they're afraid of a punishment, that is they are in self preservation mode. If people are doing whatever they need to do because of either of these two things, um, the behaviors that ensue, it does not lead to cooperation across the company. It just leads to internal fights. And yeah, like this whole snippet, this whole excerpt from this book, it's kind of describing the behaviors that happens when people are either in self-preservation mode. They, like, for example, they're in cautious or risk averse way, and they trust no one. They hoard information, they don't share, which of course impacts your organization. It can lead to delays or whatever, or other bigger issues. Or if they're in self-promotion mode, they actually step over each other to rush through towards the reward. So yeah, the point is that none of these rewards are actually good for the people, and they're not good for your organization either. So why are you doing that? And so the of course the solution is to play the infinite game. And the other thing that Drive mentions is providing autonomy, providing purpose rather than rewards and punishment. Moving on, 4,000 weeks. The more firmly you believe it ought to be possible to find time for everything, the less pressure you will feel to ask whether any given activity is the best use for a portion of your time. It's a little twisted sentence, but the author is saying that if you feel it is possible that you can make time for anything that comes your way, if you feel that it's possible, you will not feel that much pressure to ask that, okay, is it worth doing this thing? So you'll never ask that, if you feel, and like today, that's the age we live in, where we feel everything is possible. We can make time for anything. We don't really plan based on priorities. We just take things on because the alternative is FOMO. We are constantly living in the fear of missing out, which means that we always think that we'll make sure that we'll make time. Of course, that doesn't happen, right? We all know that that doesn't happen. So if we feel that, if we start with the assumption that we'll always be able to make time, we'll never question ourselves that, okay, is this really the best use of my time? So yeah, that's the summary of this highlight, I think, which brings us to the end of our highlights today. And I think we faced with rather long ones, so the video is slightly over average right now at 14 minutes. But yeah, it was fun because a lot of highlights were related and there was a lot of discussion on some of them. And of course, some highlights were them, like some highlights itself were quite long. Anyway, that's the end of today's video. Thank you.